In my previous video on Vectorize, we looked into RAG pipelines. We built a RAG pipeline for interacting with a TV manual. In this video, let's move on to RAG evaluations and look into how we can use RAG evaluations to make the most out of the RAG pipeline. So to get started, we can go to RAG evaluations, and under that page, we will see this one where we can create a new RAG evaluation, or we can go to new RAG evaluation here. And we will end up in this page where we can give a new name for our evaluation. We can upload documents that are going to be in our RAG pipeline. They can be PDF, they can be presentation, images, HTML, spreadsheets, CSV, and that's a wide array of documents that we can use here. And there's also a choice of vectorization strategy, be it the default strategy that I'm going to show to you in a minute, and also the custom strategy which I'm also going to show to you in a minute. And you can also choose between the three vector databases. One is Pinecone, next is DataStax, and there's also Elasticsearch. We can choose between these three options. And if you're totally new and if you're just playing around with the platform and you don't even have any file to drag and drop here, you can always go down here under Explore and you can go to RAG Eval Tour and you can just get a tour of whatever is available in the RAG evaluation. So if we click on Next, it will show us a bunch of documents that we can choose. These are the documents that are already available on the platform. For example, I can choose StarWars script. And if I choose that, then it says I just have to click on Run RAG Evaluation in order to kickstart the evaluation. If I click on that, we can see that it's already started the RAG evaluation. So instead of going down this route, let's go to New RAG Evaluation and create a new RAG evaluation for our data, which is the TV manual that we used in my previous video, and explore whatever is available under the vectorization strategy or whatever the parameters that we can modify in order to make the most out of the evaluation. So under new RAG evaluation, let's give a name for our evaluation. Let's call it TV manual val, and let's drag and drop the TV manual that we've got for the document. So here's the document. I'm just going to drag and drop it. So that is getting uploaded. So now that the document has uploaded, we can straight away start with the RAG evaluation by default. In this case, it will follow the default vectorization strategy. It will use the Pinecone database for the VectorDB, or we can change the VectorDB to either Elasticsearch or DataStax. So let's start with the default vectorization strategy and run the evaluation once, and then we'll look into how we can customize that. So let me click on Start RAG Evaluation. There you go. So it has successfully created RAG evaluation. And this is the dashboard. First thing we can notice is that it's got 4 vectorization plans. Vectorization plan 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And we can see that some of the plans are still running, meaning that it's still running the evaluation. And at the bottom of it, we can see that it has grouped the results based on some of the categories. Let's wait for all the evaluations to complete. So now that the evaluation is complete 100% for all of the 4 plans, we can notice that there is also a small green rectangle around the best performing plan. And there's also a small cup indicating that that's the best metric that we can get. And that's the best plan for you for the data. And we also need to note that different models have different output dimensions for the vectors. For example, the Voyage AI Instruct V2 has got only 1024 dimensional vector. But if you take OpenAI V3 Large, that's got 3072 dimensional vectors. So the larger the data for you, this dimension is going to be large, and so it's going to consume more data in your database. It's going to consume more space in your database, and there's also going to be high computation when you're dealing with a large number of documents. So let's just bear that in mind. It does a comparison of all of the 4 methods and gives results into nice plots and whatnot. It is also grouped based on the different categories. For example, for the TV technology and feature, we can see that this is a separate score for each of the 4 models. And we also have something for TV accessibility and channels, remote control instructions, TV smart features, and gaming and video codecs. Take this one, for example. So if you're keen on remote control instructions, if you want to do RAG on that, then we can see that V3 has got the best performance with a relevancy of 0.837, but VP4 has got only 0.827 for the relevancy, and VP2 has got a relevancy of 0.905. So that makes VP2 the best plan for the remote control instructions category. So depending on what you're keen on, we can choose whichever the plan that we need to go for. So if I'm keen on remote control instructions, I will probably go for vectorization plan 2. But if I'm concerned about the overall performance, then I will go for vectorization plan 3. Once you have inspected the overall result and the performance and you're happy with it, you can always click on Open in RAG Sandbox, and the sandbox opens up for you to play around with some queries. But before we do that, let's look into custom evaluation. So if we go to new RAG evaluation, we'll do the same, but this time let's do the TV manual eval 2, and let's drag and drop the same file. It's still uploading, and this time let's choose the custom instead of the default, and let's look into what happens now. Now we can see that for each of the different strategies, we have much more customization. For example, I can choose the embedding model. It is Voyage AI2, OpenAI ADA V2, OpenAI V3 large, V3 small, and there's also Mistral E5 small. And there's also the different dimensions. For example, if you really want to do small dimensions, then you can probably choose Mistral. I'm going to go for that. And I'm also going to go for the next largest one, which is Voyage. I'm going to go for OpenAI ADA V2. And for the fourth choice, I'm going to go for the largest dimension, which is OpenAI V3 large. Now that we have chosen the 4 embedding models, we can also choose the top K, which is the top K retrieval results whenever some result is retrieved. I'm going to just choose 3. And there's also the choice of extraction strategy. So there's mixed extraction, there's Vectorize Iris. In my previous video, we had a look at the power of Vectorize Iris. So I'm going to choose Vectorize Iris, and we're going to stick with Vectorize Iris for each of these. And also we have the ability to choose the chunk size. We can reduce the chunk size. I'm just going to set it to 200, and we can also choose the chunk overlap. It's better to have an overlap, so I'm just going to give an overlap of say 10, and I'm going to set the same for all other models too. Now that we have set all the parameters, we can now start the RAG evaluation, and we will get a result similar to the default setting that we saw before. Because we chose custom extraction and custom chunking strategy, it's now going ahead and doing all the chunking, and it's doing all the extraction. Once it's completed that, we should be able to see the results here. While that is running, let's look into what are these NDCG relevancy and recall scores that we are getting in these plots. So depending on what criteria you're after, you can choose whichever the plan that you want to go for. For example, normalized discount cumulative gain is a measure of the ranking quality, and it measures the effectiveness of the retrieval process based on the relevance of the documents at various positions in the ranked list. So it comes down to how well the documents are ranked in the retrieval. And there's also the relevancy score. It represents how relevant the retrieved documents are to the input query. For example, if the top 3 documents are extremely relevant to the input query, then the relevancy score will be high. And these are very good indicators of which plan you can choose out of the 4. There you go. So we have the results, and the verdict is that Vectorize plan 3 is the best out of the 4 plans that we are dealing with. And we can always click on Open in RAG Sandbox to play around with any of these plans. So if I click on that, I can switch between all of the 4 plans, choose whichever plan I want to play around with or examine further, and I can prompt it and I can get a response. We can see that the system behavior there, you are a helpful assistant, and we can type in any question. Let's say, what is the maximum frame rate of resolution? So these are some of the sample questions that are generated for us. If we just click on that, and then if I just submit it, we can see that the prompt is already there for us. And there's also, we are getting the LLM response straight away. And by default, it's powered by Llama 3.3 70 billion, but we can always change that. For example, we have DeepSeek Llama 3.1, GPT-4o, OpenAI O3 Mini, Gemma 2, and all sorts of options available there. And we can also change the temperature based on how much you want the model to hallucinate or not. And it also gives a retrieval content metric. It gives a relevancy score and also gives a NDCG score. And it shows the different chunks that are being used for the response. We can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chunks that are being used in order to come up with this response. Because we chose K as 5, it's used 5 chunks. And in the sandbox, if you ever want to use some other model or some other plan, you can switch between them here, and you can always ask the question again, and you can get the response, and you can quickly evaluate for any specific question to find out how the performance of the plan is. So that was the sandbox. I like some of the small touches like this. For example, if you have any quick doubts, you can ask AI any questions. For example, how to use the RAG sandbox. Then it just quickly generates an answer, and it will tell you how to go about using the RAG sandbox. So these are nice little features that are there. So that's pretty much what I wanted to walk you through today for the RAG evaluation in Vectorize. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.